Hollywood has always been a stage for glitz, glamour, and carefully curated public images. But every so often cracks begin to form and the truth starts to leak out. In a stunning twist that has social media in a frenzy and fans completely divided, shocking new claims are surfacing that Team Blake Lively may have been the first to strike behind closed doors, quietly working to damage Justin Baldoni's reputation long before any legal tensions were made public. What really happened behind the scenes? Did the elegant mask of celebrity diplomacy slip? And if so, what does this mean for Blake's clean-cut Hollywood image? This developing situation has left many wondering, was Justin Baldoni simply defending himself all along, or is there something much deeper at play? A strategic PR war happening right under our noses. While most mainstream headlines have painted Baldoni as the unexpected challenger in a high-profile dispute, fresh insider reports suggest that he may have been on the receiving end of a targeted campaign months before anyone knew there was trouble brewing. Today we're diving deep into the full timeline of events, unpacking exclusive details, analyzing cryptic social media posts, uncovering behind-the-scenes moves, and examining the legal whispers that just won't go away. Buckle up, because what you're about to hear could completely change how you see both of these stars. Welcome to Flossom Talk, where we go beyond the red carpet and into the real stories behind Hollywood headlines. I'm your host, Flo, and this isn't just gossip. It's a revealing look into the entertainment industry's most closely guarded drama. Let's uncover the truth together. For years, the public saw Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni as two of Hollywood's most respected, gracious, and unproblematic stars. Blake, adored for her elegance, charming personality, and a career built on successful films and fashion icon status, had maintained a flawless reputation. On the other hand, Justin Baldoni was admired not just as an actor but as a visionary director and a thoughtful advocate for mental health and emotional vulnerability in men. Their paths rarely crossed in the public eye, but both occupied unique spaces of influence in the entertainment industry. So how did these two seemingly unconnected stars end up at the center of an unfolding controversy that has left fans stunned and insiders whispering the truth may lie in a series of quiet events that built up unnoticed by the public until now? It all started innocently, at least on the surface. Sources in the industry began murmuring about a project Justin Baldoni's production company Wayfarer Studios had taken an interest in. Coincidentally, insiders claimed that Blake's team had also been circling a similar storyline, though both sides were professional and no public clash ever occurred. Whispers of a behind-the-scenes race to secure rights, partnerships, and producers began surfacing. While this kind of overlap happens all the time in Hollywood, something about the situation felt different. It wasn't long before both fan bases started noticing subtle shifts in tone, cryptic social media posts, unexplained unfollows, and vague interviews that hinted at tension but never named names. A stylist who had once worked with both stars reposted a story about industry loyalty being tested. A PR insider anonymously dropped a blind item, claiming that a powerful female star was spreading concern about a male actor behind closed doors, calling him erratic and unreliable in back-channel conversations with brands and executives. While the item never used names, timelines and vague descriptions began to align closely with Justin Baldoni's recent career trajectory and past partnerships. Fans on Reddit and X, formerly Twitter, quickly picked up the scent, speculating wildly about whether Team Blake had quietly started playing a deeper PR game, one that targeted Baldoni before the public even realized there was a problem. Meanwhile, Justin's normally inspirational and peaceful tone on social media started to shift. He posted a quote saying, "Sometimes silence protects the wrong people," followed by another, "Grace should never be mistaken for weakness." These weren't his usual optimistic messages, and longtime fans noticed the change. A podcast interview only added fuel to the fire, as Justin said, "I've learned that even people you thought were about justice and compassion can surprise you when no one's watching." He didn't name anyone, but his tone made it clear something had changed, and it wasn't just about Hollywood politics. Something personal had shifted behind the scenes. As his tone became more pointed, reports began circulating that Justin had sought legal counsel regarding alleged misinformation being spread about him to brands and studios. These weren't dramatic public accusations or lawsuits. Rather, they were quiet legal inquiries into whether someone from a rival team had been spreading narratives meant to damage his reputation or prevent certain partnerships from forming. A producer close to one of Justin's recent projects even told an entertainment blog off the record that they had been approached by someone hinting that Justin was hard to work with. But when pressed for details, the sources vanished or the stories fell apart. A journalist added to the growing curiosity when they said in a live stream, "There's something happening around Baldoni that doesn't make sense. It feels coordinated." That same journalist had previously written glowing articles about Blake Lively, which made their sudden skepticism even more noticeable. Was there a turning of tides among those who once supported her image? It seemed so, even online. Influencers, who once hyped up Blake's appearances and brand partnerships, began to go quiet. Some deleted older posts or stopped commenting under her Instagram updates. Meanwhile, others began reposting Justin's quotes about truth, kindness, and resilience. The shift in energy wasn't dramatic, but for those paying attention, it was undeniable. And then came the blind items, more of them. Different outlets began dropping anonymous claims about an actress using backchannel influence to bury a male activist actor. The language was always vague, but the pattern became unmistakable. One insider from a PR agency even went as far as to say, "We were pitched a negative story about Justin Baldoni under the pretext of concern for mental wellness, but it was clearly meant to slow down his momentum." The agency didn't run the story, sensing it was part of a larger agenda. Still, it confirmed what fans had already begun to suspect, that someone was working overtime to reshape how Justin was viewed in the industry, while Blake Lively herself made no direct comments and kept her usual polished social media presence intact. Her silence was louder than words. For someone so beloved and with such influence, a simple comment in support of Justin could have ended the speculation, but no such statement ever came. Fans began asking if she had nothing to do with the allegations. Why not say so? Why let a fellow actor's image suffer in silence? The answer never came, and the silence became its own message. Justin, to his credit, never directly called her out. He maintained his professionalism, continued his work, and let his actions speak louder than speculation. Still, he made it clear that he would no longer remain quiet in the face of unjust narratives. One post in particular stood out: "I've learned that some people will try to rewrite your story in rooms you're not in, but the truth always finds its way out, always." That caption went viral, prompting thousands of comments, including from other industry figures, who praised him for speaking up. At this point, it became clear that this wasn't just about personal grievances. What fans were witnessing was a potential PR battle between two celebrity teams, one perhaps playing defense, the other accused of playing offense. Without ever making a public move, it's not uncommon in Hollywood for reputations to be quietly shaped through strategic leaks, selective endorsements, and behind-the-scenes narratives. What made this situation unique was how visible the strategy had become. Once people began paying attention, one casting director tweeted and later deleted a comment that read, "It's wild when the most elegant people in the industry play the dirtiest games." No names, of course, but by then no names were needed. The comment was screenshotted and spread across fan accounts, prompting even more speculation about who the message was directed toward. As part one of this unfolding story concludes, we are left with more questions than answers, but with enough clues to see a bigger picture forming. Justin Baldoni, from all appearances, was not the aggressor in this situation. Instead, it seems he may have been the target of a subtle, deliberate, and well-crafted effort to slow his rise and damage his credibility before the public even knew there was tension. And while nothing has been proven, the signs point to a source with influence, connections, and a very specific agenda. Was Blake Lively aware of what was happening behind the scenes? Was it her team acting without her knowledge, or is the truth far more complicated, involving a tangled web of professional competition, brand strategy, and personal ego in Hollywood? Image is everything, and sometimes protecting that image comes at the cost of someone else's. Whatever the case, maybe one thing is clear: the silence from one side and the resilience from the other have set the stage for something bigger. And as the next part of this story unfolds, the truth, no matter how carefully it's been hidden, may finally come to light. The energy around this story began shifting when a former executive assistant, who once worked closely with multiple celebrity teams, shared vague but pointed tweets about men being slandered in the name of protecting reputations. While she never tagged anyone or confirmed names, followers dug deeper and discovered she had previously worked on projects connected to both Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni's circles. Though her tweets disappeared within 24 hours, screenshots circulated rapidly. The comments were filled with fans speculating whether she had indirectly confirmed what many had already begun to suspect, that a calculated campaign may have been launched against Justin Baldoni, and not just recently but over the past year. What made the situation more troubling was the consistency of the timeline. It seemed that every time Justin took a step forward, whether that meant announcing a new project, being invited to speak on a social justice panel, or securing distribution for a film, some quiet negative buzz would begin. Industry insiders, talent managers, and social media commentators alike began to notice that no matter how positive the headlines there were always one or two anonymous industry insiders quoted in gossip blogs suggesting he was hard to manage or driven by ego. These weren't just casual comments, they appeared precisely timed always when Justin's name began trending for something positive. At the same time, Blake Lively's team remained strategically silent. Her image remained as curated as ever, with carefully staged red carpet appearances, well-timed product launches, and glowing media interviews that made no mention of the growing speculation online. Some fans argued that she shouldn't be expected to comment on everything. Others countered that when another public figure's career might be suffering due to tactics coming from your inner circle, a single statement of clarity or denial could mean everything. But Blake said nothing, and the longer that silence stretched, the more telling it became. Justin, meanwhile, remained composed but firm. He continued working, speaking out about justice, compassion, and the importance of being true to one's values in a world full of pressure to conform. But he also began taking small legal steps, reportedly requesting cease and desist letters be sent to sources he believed were knowingly spreading false information. While none of these letters were made public, several sources within entertainment legal circles confirmed they'd seen similar action taken when reputation harm was suspected. What made these moves particularly interesting was that they weren't grand public lawsuits or dramatic countersuits. Instead, it was methodical, private, and smart, meant not to escalate the situation, but to protect himself from further damage. It sent a clear message: he knew what was going on and he wasn't afraid to address it. Around this time, fans discovered something else that fanned the flames even higher. A publicist who had once worked with Blake on a major endorsement campaign had recently switched sides, now managing talent in Justin's orbit. In an unguarded podcast interview, she stated, "When you've worked on both sides of a conflict, you start to realize that perception is everything, and sometimes the people who seem the most graceful publicly are the most calculated behind the scenes." She never mentioned names, but given her history, listeners have little doubt who she was referring to. The podcast clip went viral, sparking renewed debates across fan forums and entertainment commentary channels alike. Then came a critical turning point. A Hollywood trade magazine published a feature on Hollywood's new wave of male advocates, which included Justin Baldoni as a key voice. The article was overwhelmingly positive, but it included one curious line: Baldoni's continued rise has not been without resistance from more traditionally polished corners of the industry. It was a subtle dig, perhaps maybe even a message hidden in plain sight. The writer didn't clarify what they meant, but many believed it was referencing the quiet pushback from those threatened by Justin's growing influence and authenticity. At the same time, a few notable celebrities began subtly showing support for Justin. A-list actors, directors, and wellness influencers who had remained neutral suddenly began commenting under his posts. One actress reposted one of his quotes on her story with the caption, "Truth needs no permission." Another quietly unfollowed Blake Lively. These digital breadcrumbs, though small, painted a picture of shifting alliances in Hollywood, one that spoke volumes. Meanwhile, commentary channels, including some with millions of subscribers, began doing deep dives into the situation, using archived interviews, timelines, media reports, and expert opinions. They began constructing a fuller picture, one where Justin Baldoni had quietly endured a campaign to slow his momentum, while remaining silent, professional, and focused. And increasingly, Blake's name, though still not directly tied to any confirmed misconduct, was becoming synonymous with that silence and the questions it created. The narrative took another leap when leaked screenshots emerged showing that a PR firm associated with a high-profile actress had drafted internal memos about strategically managing media optics in a gendered power conflict. The memo never named names, but referenced a situation involving two A-listers, one male, one female, and outlined talking points about emotional instability and risky associations. These memos were never released to press officially, but a whistleblower from the firm leaked them online. Within hours, the memo was trending across X, with many believing it was linked directly to Blake's team. Though legal representatives quickly dismissed the memo's relevance, the public had seen enough, and the court of public opinion was no longer as sympathetic to the silence. The conversation had shifted. It was no longer just about rumors or social media unfollows. It was about patterns, timing, and control. Why did stories about Justin's emotional health always pop up during moments of success? Why were insiders consistently planting seeds of doubt around his character without providing clear sources or evidence? And why had Blake Lively's team, with all its access to media and power, never once stepped forward to clear the air? Some believed that the answers lay in deeper Hollywood politics, Justin's focus on truth-telling, masculinity, and emotional intelligence clashed with the industry's long-standing traditions of polished image over personal integrity. In contrast, Blake's career had always revolved around her fashion presence, brand collaborations, and maintaining a pristine persona that didn't leave room for controversy. Perhaps, as some speculated, Justin's raw vulnerability and growing influence felt like a threat, not to Blake directly but to the system that had benefited from people like her. Even more curious was how other celebrities were reacting. A well-known director who had previously worked with Blake commented vaguely on a live stream, "Some people play the long game when it comes to PR, but the truth is like gravity. You can't suppress it forever." When asked directly if they were referring to the lively Baldoni rumors, they smiled but gave no direct answer. It was yet another moment where silence felt louder than words. Justin, for his part, stayed focused. In one of his latest interviews, he said, "My job isn't to defend my character to people who are determined to misunderstand me. My responsibility is to tell stories that matter and to protect the truth, even when it's inconvenient." It was clear he knew what was happening behind the scenes but was choosing a path of integrity over retaliation. As part 2 comes to a close, the web of quiet manipulations surrounding this story is beginning to unravel. There's no clear confession, no dramatic reveal, but the clues are stacking up. Blake Lively, whether knowingly or through her team's unchecked ambition, may have been part of an effort to reframe the narrative around Justin Baldoni, an effort that is now being exposed piece by piece through the power of collective observation and digital accountability. What happens next will depend on whether more insiders come forward, whether legal actions become public, and whether either party finally chooses to speak openly. But one thing is certain: this story is no longer hiding in the shadows. The industry is watching, the fans are asking questions, and the truth is slowly taking shape. Whatever unfolds next, one side has already begun reclaiming control, and it's not the one that started the whispers. After analyzing timelines, media narratives, anonymous tips, legal movements, and social media signals, it's clear that what started as a quiet industry whisper has now grown into a full-blown conversation about reputation, power, and control in Hollywood. The idea that Team Blake Lively may have been involved directly or indirectly in planting stories or shaping perceptions about Justin Baldoni was once just a theory. But after everything we've explored, it's no longer so easy to dismiss. The patterns, the silence, the timing, all of it points to something deeper than coincidence. While no formal statement or lawsuit has confirmed the full truth behind the allegations, Justin's careful, consistent response and quiet legal protection efforts suggest that he's been facing challenges most fans were unaware of. His refusal to publicly name names, choosing instead to lead with grace, honesty, and a quiet strength has gained him growing respect, not just from his supporters, but from within the industry itself. That kind of response doesn't just speak volumes, it builds credibility. Blake Lively, on the other hand, remains silent. Her refusal to acknowledge any of the growing speculation has left her fans divided. Some believe she's protecting herself from a situation that has nothing to do with her. Others feel her silence is complicity, especially if members of her inner circle were acting without her knowledge. In Hollywood, where reputation is currency, even indirect actions carry massive weight. And silence, while sometimes wise, can just as often be interpreted as strategy. At the end of the day, this situation reminds us of a deeper truth. Behind every carefully managed celebrity brand is a team of people working overtime to control how the world sees them. But what happens when those efforts harm someone else's truth? What happens when the machinery of reputation spins into something more manipulative than protective? This isn't just about two celebrities, it's about the culture of silence and influence that exists behind the red carpets and curated Instagram posts. It's about how quickly a narrative can be built, dismantled, or weaponized, all without a single public statement. And it's about choosing truth over convenience even when the stakes are high. Whether Justin ever names names or not, one thing is certain: people are paying attention now. The industry is shifting, audiences are smarter, and the truth, no matter how quietly it's been buried, has a way of rising to the surface. Thanks for watching Flossom Talk. I'm Flo, and I'll be here bringing you more stories that cut through the noise and uncover the real Hollywood beneath the headlines. Until next time, stay sharp, stay curious, and don't be afraid to question the narrative.